Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some exciting news from North Bay Resources, Inc.
Okay.
and their Fran Gold project in British Columbia.
All right.
They've just released an update on their gold recovery process, and frankly, the results are pretty impressive. So we're going to explore exactly how they're getting this gold out of the ground, what it means for the project's future. Now, if you're listening, you're probably interested in gold as an investment, or maybe you're fascinated by the whole mining process. Either way, I think you're going to find this deep dive really interesting.
I think you're right about that. What immediately stood out to me in this news release is the 97% gold recovery rate they're reporting.
Wow.
That's a remarkable figure.
97%.
Yeah.
That's like finding every single grain of gold in a pile of sand.
It's pretty incredible.
How are they achieving such incredible efficiency?
Well, they're using a combination of some pretty clever techniques. The initial stage involves gravity separation, which is a pretty straightforward concept. Imagine you have a pan full of mixed gravel and you swirl it around. The heavier gold particles will naturally settle to the bottom, while the lighter material stays on top. That's the basic idea behind gravity separation.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how do they go from there to a near-perfect 97% recovery?
That's where the second part of their process comes in, flotation. Think of it as giving those tiny gold particles a little ride to the surface.
Okay.
They use a mix of chemicals that basically make the gold particles stick to bubbles. These bubbles then float to the top, carrying the gold with them, where it can be easily collected.
So it's like giving the gold a little bubble bath to help it separate. I like that analogy.
I like that.
But let's back up a bit. We know they're starting with ore that has about 0.9 ounces of gold per ton. What happens after they put it through this gravity separation and flotation obstacle course?
The results are pretty amazing. They're able to concentrate the gold up to 11.23 ounces per ton.
Wow.
That's a more than 12-fold increase.
That's a huge jump in concentration. It sounds like they've really dialed in their process. But I imagine it's more than just shaking things up and scooping off the top. What kind of technology are they using behind the scenes to achieve this?
It all starts with understanding their raw material.
Okay.
Like a chef carefully examining ingredients before cooking a gourmet meal.
Right.
They utilize what's called a multi-element analysis technique. Think of it as a super-powered fingerprint scanner that identifies the exact composition of the ore. This gives them a detailed blueprint showing them where the gold is hiding and the best way to extract it.
So they're not just blindly processing the ore, they're using science to pinpoint the gold and tailor their extraction methods for maximum efficiency.
Precisely. And once they have that blueprint, they can move on to the actual extraction process. The first step is grinding the ore down to an incredibly fine powder, much finer than a human hair. This ensures that the gold particles are fully liberated from the surrounding rock.
I can't even imagine grinding something that fine. It sounds like a very precise and delicate process.
It is, and it's crucial for the effectiveness of the subsequent steps. Next comes the gravity separation we talked about earlier. They use a specialized piece of equipment called a Nelson concentrator, which spins the powdered ore at high speeds. This centrifugal force throws the heavier gold particles outwards, separating them from the lighter waste rock.
So it's like a high-tech gold sifter that uses centrifugal force to do the heavy lifting. But if they're already spinning out a significant portion of the gold, why even bother with the flotation step?
That's a great question. Remember, they're aiming for that remarkable 97% recovery rate. Flotation is all about capturing those last, stubborn gold particles that might have escaped the initial gravity separation.
Gotcha.
The chemicals they use create a kind of selective bubble attraction that lifts those remaining gold particles to the surface where they can be skimmed off.
Okay, so it's a two-pronged approach. First, using gravity to capture the majority of the gold, and then using flotation to sweep up the rest. Pretty clever. What happens to all that concentrated gold once they've extracted it?
Well, North Bay Resources just shipped a whopping 120 tons from their Fran Gold project to their processing facility down in California. And what's really interesting is that they managed to pack it all into fewer super sacks than they initially anticipated.
Fewer super sacks. Does that mean they found an unusually rich vein of gold?
It could be. One interesting thing they pointed out is that the gold is often found in close association with iron. So the extra weight could be due to a higher concentration of iron-rich gold-bearing material.
So not only are they achieving a high recovery rate, but they might even be exceeding their initial estimates. It sounds like things are really heating up at the Fran Gold project. But what happens next? Do they just melt down this concentrate and call it a day?
Not quite. The journey of this gold is far from over. Once it arrives at their California facility, it goes through a refining process to further purify and isolate the gold from any remaining impurities.
It sounds like a multi-stage process, each step adding to the purity and value of the gold.
It is.
Have they made any changes to this refining process?
Actually, they have. They're constantly looking for ways to optimize and improve, which I find really impressive.
I'm all ears. Tell me more about these improvements. What are they doing to fine-tune their refining process?
They've invested in some new equipment to refine their gravity separation process even further, like a Knudsen bowl and a Gemini table. They're also experimenting with different settings on their Deister table, which is another type of gravity separator, to maximize gold recovery.
It sounds like they're leaving no stone unturned in their quest for gold gathering efficiency. But have they seen any actual results from these refinery upgrades? Are they getting the gold they expected out of this concentrate?
Yes, they have, and the initial results are very promising.
Yeah.
They reported getting 0.3 ounces of gold per ton from the first 2 tons they processed and 0.5 ounces per ton from the second batch. That's a significant jump.
So their refining process is working, and there's still room for further improvement.
Exactly.
It's like they're solving a complex puzzle, constantly tweaking and refining their approach to get the best possible results.
It really is.
Now, before we get carried away with the technical details, I think we need to zoom out a bit and talk about the Fran Gold project itself. What can you tell us about this place?
It's a pretty impressive operation. The Fran Gold project spans a massive 34,360 acres in British Columbia and is conveniently located near a major gold mine.
Right.
They've already completed over 50,000 feet of drilling in 104 holes, mainly focusing on an area they call the Bullion Alley Zone.
Bullion Alley. Sounds promising. But what have they actually discovered there? What's lurking beneath the surface?
They've uncovered a gold deposit that stretches over 3,700 feet long, up to 120 feet wide, and goes down over 700 feet deep. That's a lot of gold-bearing rock.
That's a lot.
It is. And within this deposit, they've identified several distinct veins, some with gold concentrations as high as 2.6 ounces per ton.
That's incredible. It's like an underground treasure trove waiting to be unearthed. But if it's all underground, how are they getting access to this gold? Do they have an elaborate tunnel system down there?
Well, they mentioned that some of the gold veins are closer to the surface in certain areas, which they're accessing through surface trenching.
Okay, so they can reach at least some of this gold without having to dig too deep. That's good news.
It is. And here's another interesting tidbit. They've also found samples with up to 1.68% copper and 5.1 ounces per ton of silver.
Wow.
It seems like this project isn't just about gold, it's a potential of multiple precious metals.
Wow. Gold, copper, silver. Is there potential for even more discoveries at the Fran Gold project?
Absolutely. They believe there's huge potential for further discoveries beyond the Bullion Alley Zone. They've already identified numerous other gold and copper showings across this vast property. And get this, they have about 5,000 tons of surface material ready to be shipped and processed.
So they've got a mountain of gold-laden rock just waiting to be refined. It sounds like this project is just getting started. But before we get too excited, I think it's important to step back and look at the bigger picture here. What's the significance of these findings within the gold mining industry?
Well, what stands out to me is their focus on continuous improvement and optimization. They're not settling for good enough. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible in gold extraction.
I'm really impressed by their dedication to innovation, especially their commitment to achieving such high recovery rates. It's clear they're not just digging up gold, they're approaching it with a scientific mindset and a relentless pursuit of efficiency.
You've hit the nail on the head. Their innovative approach, coupled with these impressive results, makes them a company to watch in the gold mining space.
I completely agree. It's been a fascinating deep dive. We've gone from the microscopic world of gold particles to the broader context of the success of a mining project.
It is a fascinating interplay of factors, isn't it? But there's another layer we haven't even touched on yet, the human element.
That's a really important point. We often forget about the people involved in every stage of this process.
Think about it. The miners who are doing the hard work of extracting the ore, the engineers designing and operating the equipment, the scientists analyzing the data, the managers making strategic decisions, they're all part of the story.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical details and forget that there's a whole ecosystem of people connected to this project.
Exactly.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening discussion. It's amazing how many factors influence a mining project, from those tiny gold particles to the global market and the workers themselves. But we can't forget about technology. We've already seen how it's driving advancements in extraction and processing.
Technology has the potential to revolutionize the mining industry in ways we can only begin to imagine. For example, artificial intelligence and machine learning are being used to optimize mine planning and operations. This helps reduce waste, improve efficiency, and make better use of resources. Then there are sensors and data analytics that can monitor environmental conditions in real time. This allows companies to quickly identify and respond to potential problems, minimizing any negative impact.
So it's about using technology not only to extract resources more effectively, but also to minimize the environmental footprint and ensure safety for everyone involved. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to you, the listener. We've explored the many complexities of mining, the challenges and opportunities it presents, and the vital role it plays in our modern world. But ultimately, the future of mining is in our hands. The decisions we make today will shape the future of mining for generations to come. So I leave you with this question. What role will you play in creating a more sustainable and just mining industry? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a better future.